You play Path of Exile, you use 3 Minecraft chests until you start mapping. You get pissed off because you filled them up and have a lot of valuable things that you can't sell. You spend $5 and get a premium Minecraft chest that you can use to put tags on items and tell others what you have to sell. You put in something to sell for chump change. You leave to go do other things. You get a message in game from someone wanting to buy. You stop what you're doing, go all the way back home, get in a party together, wait for them to teleport to you, you do the exchange, making sure you already have the exact change in your inventory because there's a bug that stops you from adjusting item stacks while in a trade. They leave, rinse and repeat. When you want to buy something, you go to a website on Path of Exile's forum, type in what you want, and then message a person to get something. You wait 20 seconds with no response. You message the next guy. And the next guy, and the next guy. You finally message someone who responds, while 2 other people who waited 5 minutes to message you back also respond. You randomly pick one of them, and the other 2 private message you racial slurs. You go to where they are after interrupting whatever they were doing, you make the exchange, and then meanwhile a bot did this 8 times and flipped the items for $20 after selling the money to a gold farming website. RuneScape was released in 2001. World of Warcraft was released in 2004, Guild Wars 2012, MapleStory 2003, even Ultima Online released in 1997. The first MMO in the world has an easier and more advanced auction or vendor system than Path of Exile, which was released in 2013. And while some of these games may limit your use, absolutely none of them will make you pay for even being able to sell something. There are no raids in this game. There are no mini-games, and no complex strategies for fighting. The fun of this game is entirely centered on completing your build, gambling on crafting, getting big-ticket drops, and trying to do the impossible things that streamers do who play the game as a job and have several other players backing their videos. It can be fun for a while to mow through enemies and maps while occasionally being one-shot by an enemy you can't see because everything in the game is dirt-colored. But let's be honest. Clicking on things to kill them can only go so far because it turns into cookie clicker, and even then, the average amount of currency that a person can make while playing optimally is about 150 chaos an hour for a new player. But even if you do this and accrue a large amount of wealth, your only option is to buy high-ticket items straight up instead of having a fun time trying to craft your own gear because of how long it would take to buy each individual crafting item for endgame. Let's say, for example, you want to enchant your helmet, something that all builds would want to do at some point. There are 512 possible helmet enchants in the game. About 40 of them are useful at all, and for your own build, you're probably only going to be able to utilize about 2 or 3. That means that on average, you're going to be using around 256 enchanted fossils and 256 primitive chaotic resonators to get the enchant that you want. Ignoring the time it would normally take to get the currency to buy these items in the first place, that's still 512 things you would have to buy that aren't normally sold in bulk, causing you to make over 500 individual transactions with players if you didn't have any to start with. If you take into account people who don't respond when you message them, it could take on average a minute or 2 to get each item, meaning that it could take you almost 12 hours of constant work, not taking a break, to get a single attribute on a single piece of gear that you still have to roll stats on, which will involve an equal or maybe even greater amount of work. But then, silly little me, I go on to RuneScape, I open up the Grand Exchange, buy a couple thousand soul runes or whatever, and then go on my merry way after 5 minutes. I get it though. Hack and slash Diablo 2 clones are fun. Playing RuneScape feels like sledding on sandpaper while Path of Exile is like a lube slip and slide. It's easy to use and addictive despite its obvious flaws, like sweet liquor or flavored cigarettes. But as much as I love sorting my inventory, double-checking my skill tree against some guy who spent 2 weeks optimizing a build for 600,000 DPS, and gambling away hours of my time on hoping to get a lucky drop from out of a million. This way of buying and selling is like if the dollar store had airport security. And there's no excuse for this game to be the only MMO that hasn't gotten with the times just because they're the only popular hack and slash right now. and think that they'll make more money selling inventory space to people if they don't give away any player convenience for free at all. Also, to touch on some other things real quick, enemies drop way too many items, and the only way to fix that is with a filter, which is done by downloading a text file online instead of being an in-game feature. Also, many open source add-ons have been created by the community to make for easier vending, even though the actual company won't. Selling using bots is against game rules, even though it should be an included feature. However, the economy is also run by bots, and the way they thought of fixing the issue was to reset the game every 3 months with a fresh coat of paint, since they can't figure out a way to control inflation and reward the destruction of lesser valued items. And lastly, the more important, inconvenient tabs can cost as much as $15, which is a little much for something that is so important to late game farming. Now, this should be the part where some people will decide to dislike or like the video, or maybe even make an intelligent comment to create healthy discussion below. But honestly, most people would have already stopped watching and said something like, "We've never had automated trading before and we don't need it now. Scamming people and 2-minute long transactions for only 2 chaos is a part of Path's culture. Stop trying to destroy my favorite time waster since the doctor said that banging my head on the wall was unhealthy. I've already sunk $500 into skins for this game and I'll defend this $1 million company that I have nothing to gain from until my dying breath." But here's my extremely subtle rebuttal that they will probably never see. The only reason that anybody would be for this kind of system is because to gain any level of mastery in this game requires hundreds of hours of playtime, which gives you the upper hand on new players, making you feel like the big man in life ever since you got out of high school and need something to fill the void while you're not working at McDonald's, even though this feeling also just shows how much of a mental hold the game really has on you and how little control you really have in life. Something that you would realize if you had even the smallest amount of introspection. But hey, that's just an aneurysm, a brain aneurysm. Ah!